Good afternoon, good morning. Well, I'm not sure what to say now. I know it's at an anchor time, just before lunch. But that's good, because there's long queues now. Just let them queue, and then we go later for lunch, right? That's better, right? Let's feed our brains now with some data. A quick one, actually. Who's of you, just raise your hand if you are a data engineer, data analyst, something around data? Right, cool. I mean, of course, all of you are around data. What are you doing here otherwise? So, my name is Aymen. You can see a few years younger. I'm not going to talk about that otherwise. Is it Fivetran or something else? We don't know. And I have Mark with me.
Hi everyone, so I'm Mark James. I'm a senior sales engineer at Fivetran as well, a colleague of Aymen's, and I'm pleased to meet you today.
Thanks, Mark. So today we're going to do a demo. And by the way, everything we're going to do here, you can do it yourself in our booth, starting from 12 onward today. And of course, eventually, even your own at home later on. We'll show you how in 20 minutes we're going to get data from a source where there is a data, specific industry data. So the data is not in an AI platform, it's still in the source, in a database, in an application. We're going to get the data into an AI platform, develop a Gen AI application, an agent, and get insights about specific industry that Mark will choose. Depend. But let me tell you a bit about Fivetran first. I mean, if you didn't hear yet, because a few people have been talking about Fivetran in this place before. If you attended any of the presentations in this hall, you must have heard about Fivetran. Today I'm going to show you about how you develop. We're going to show you how you develop the SDK connector, how you develop with Python, with prompts. But the added value, really, what Fivetran helps is with those 700 connectors. 700 today, more than 700. I would say there will be 1,000 by the end of the year. We have already in place managed service, ready pipeline for you. All you have to do is just authentify and get the data from your source. Of course, if it's a database or SAP, there is some prerequisites you need to do, some infrastructure, networking maybe you need to secure. But once it's there, you don't have to manage that part. Forget it. The data is in your bronze layer. All your added value is managing that data, creating the value, going to the gold, creating products, and so on. The pipeline is done for you. You don't have to put any time on it or any thought on it. But of course, sometimes there are some sources we don't support today. A niche source, internal API, very localized application used by specific customers. Well, you could actually, once you are a customer, ask us to develop a connector for you. But in the meantime, you have the connector SDK. Mark is going to show you how in a few minutes. You see, I'm taking my time talking. I have 20 minutes. You're going to do it in a few minutes. You're going to show you how it's going to connect to that source and get insight out of it. Today we're going to use Snowflake. I think we have in the next slide, is it? Yeah, but I'll talk about that later. Right. So you said you are all pretty much either a data engineer, data scientist, or a data analyst. So this is familiar for you. This sounds something like, if you haven't done it, you know who has been doing it for you, at least. And I personally, from what I hear, from what I've seen with prospects and customers, this is optimal numbers. I've seen worse. So the total will be around 6 to 10 sprints. Let's say it's 2 weeks the sprints. We're talking about 5-6 months. I heard years. But how about if we help you to get rid of these parts? You don't have to think about orchestration, infrastructure, scaling, or how to write to the destination. Let's focus just in creating interaction with the source. How are we going to do that? Well, basically, Fivetran is taking care for all the part for you. Today, Mark will show you in a few minutes how we're going to create a new connector that is in line with the best practice of the SDK connector framework of Fivetran. It's able to do what we call the historic sync, because the way how Fivetran works is not just about bringing data. It's bringing the data and then updating the data, incremental, CDC for you. So it's always fresh. So any dashboard, any product you have behind is always fresh. And of course, I mean, we only could talk about changes. It's not just about row. We look after schema changes and new columns and everything. So with that connector, we will make sure it's covering that. But then that's all. The rest is going to be taken by Fivetran. We will do any orchestrations. So when you develop something for test or dev, you have to think when you go on prod what you need to do. With Fivetran, you don't. We will look after scaling. We will look after anything to do with API interaction with external sources or maybe governance or something like that. We will manage that for you. And of course, we support more than 20 destinations, including the one we will support show you today. So you don't have to think about how we're going to write the destination, how we optimize that process. It's all done for you. So today, Mark is going to show you, he's going to pick up one of those industry-specific data sets that he has access to. So, the idea here is to get something close to to your use cases. Using Fivetran, using the SDK connector, we're going to bring that data from that source into Snowflake, today using Snowflake. But Fivetran is quite agnostic, and we support, we support your destinations that you are using today. We have more than 20, we are developing more, and we will be able to help any data warehouse, any data lake, or any database destination that you have today. Within Snowflake, we will use Snowflake capability, we will develop a Gen AI application, an agent, that is bringing insight and KPIs specific to the industry selected by Mark. Let's do it.
Okay, thank you, Aymen. So, yeah, as I said,
you don't need this one.
I don't need that, do I? So I'm going to be taking you through now building a custom connector. Again, this is the same experience that you'll be experiencing if you come to visit us, our stand at the opposite end of the hall. But we're going to be taking you through now building a custom connector based on one of those 15 different data sets, different industries that Aymen spoke to. So for that, we actually have a custom-built public GitHub repository that we will make available in due course as well. As I say, these are hosting the 15 different industries we have available at the moment. And I'm going to choose, for example, manufacturing today. Oh, and I'm going to choose media because we did that earlier. Under media, we'll have a lab guide. So this is where we're going to be running the lab from today. And this is going to be taking you through building this connector. The first stage of which is actually generating the custom connector using AI. So using Anthropic Workbench, using Claude AI to generate the connector. First of all, we're going to need to generate a user prompt. So specific to this particular industry, we've got a user prompt I'm going to take out here to use. I'm going to copy this over into the Claude console, and you can see we already have a system prompt generated for us. This system prompt is effectively providing us with the guardrails and the recommendations that Claude is going to use in combination with our user prompt to generate the connector.py file. So fundamentally, the connector SDK with Fivetran is generated and built alongside a Python script. So if you were to do this hand-cranked and write this yourself, you would need Python knowledge, which I think is pretty prevalent in the industry these days. But you'd write a connector through the connector.py file. With that being said, we're just going to use the Claude AI generator today to actually, as I say, with the combination between the system and the user prompt, we're going to run these two together, and in a short while, Claude knows, with those two together, that it needs to generate a connector.py and a combination of another two files, the requirements file and another configuration file.
And of course, Mark, I mean, you're using Anthropic, but they can use any AI
Absolutely,
platforms.
yeah. So we don't even need to have a paid for subscription. You can even use the free ChatGPT. In this particular case, because we built a small data set, there's very little credits that are going to be need to consumed. So any AI generator that you're used to, we can use to actually generate this connector.py file. So let's copy this over. We've now got this copied, and the first thing I need to do is just need to switch out into Visual Studio.
The beauty of the live demo.
There we go. And here in this case, we're just going to show you building the script for the connector. So in the connector.py, I'm just going to paste that script in. I'm going to save this as you do with any development application to make sure we're covered. And for those of you who can see on the screen, we're actually now going to be debugging the script. What this is going to do, if I actually generate this now, I press yes to actually reset this and start this off. Oh, okay. Reset failed. I didn't save, sorry. There I was saying I needed to save and I didn't save, so let's try that again. No, reset failed. Do you want to come up? We're bringing in the big guns. Bear with us.
The beauty of the live demo. Let's blame it in the internet connection
of course, because we didn't activate the project.
So the idea here, we prepared the prompts before. Of course, I mean, if you are developing your own connectors, you will look at the API, you will give it the prompt link to the API documentation, to the SDK Fivetran documentation for the best practice, and then ask for what kind of output you would like to have. And with that prompt, you put it in like Anthropic or ChatGPT, and then get basically the code, and then what is running now is
Thank you. What you're seeing is it's generated 600 records in the demo data set. At the top here in the screen, you're seeing that it's generated a select statement, so to select the top 5 records. But it's also in the operational summary showed that it's generated 600 records for us, which I'm not sure you can see very well on that screen. But up on the top here, you see warehouse.db. That's effectively a lightweight DuckDB database containing those 600 records. So at this point, you could use, for example, dbeaver to go off and actually connect to that database and interrogate that database. But at this point, we want to now start deploying this and making this ready as a connector to bring into Fivetran. So with the console now, if we come back into the console, we're now looking for deploy.sh. Again, this is, as Aymen's mentioned, this is a script that we built to speed up the process. We'll come into the documentation in a short while, but everything is very nicely documented in the Fivetran docs to explain these processes and the commands that are needed. But now we're actually, within this script, within the shell script, we've already built in the fact that we know our account name, our Fivetran account, our managed service, so we don't need to worry about that. In the case of the destination and name as well, we don't need to worry about that because that's already been built into the shell script. Now here in this final option, we need to name our connector. So we need to, I'm going to call this, for example, Mark J. BDL 2025 day 2, something really long. This is now going to go off and work with the connector SDK package that we've deployed and deploy this connector into the Fivetran managed service. So there we now see that green successful tick, which is really showing that it's now deployed that particular connector. So now switching back into our browser, looking at the Fivetran dashboard, we can see now that my connector is now available as part of the connector SDK. We're going to be delivering that data into Snowflake as a destination. It's worthwhile mentioning here as well, Snowflake is not the only destination, of course, we support. We support the standard, well-known, industry-recognized Databricks, Google BigQuery, SQL Server, Oracle, Redshift, you name it. We have almost 40 different destinations we can support, from data lake to data warehouse solutions, on-premise and in cloud. If we go into this pipeline now, and the first thing I'm going to do once this is available is I'm going to start this initial sync. What this is now doing is going off to the API that we have available and starting to bring in those 600 records that we saw through Visual Studio Code a second ago. This is making what we call our first historical sync. So this is bringing in the 600 records. What will then happen is once that first initial sync is done, it then goes into what we call the incremental syncs, where we look at the change history, where we look at how many records have changed since the last sync happened. And that's where we actually capture only the changes rather than doing a full load into each time. It's a very, it's the least intrusive way, actually, particularly with relational databases, that we're only looking at the change logs and the history rather than doing a full load every single time.
Now we can do that really very fast, and within a minute or within 24 hours. It's a setup that you can see it there in the setup, the connector. They can set up that.
So this one's going to take about a minute left to complete. Just switching over to through the UI a little bit more. In the case of the connector SDK, which is specific to this, we have a log section where you can see how the connector SDK has worked and what it's done. As yet, because this is new, there's been nothing yet being seen in the logs, but this is the relevant section. Perhaps the most interesting here is the setup. On the left-hand side of your screen, we're seeing the connection to the underlying source. In this case, our API, so which API key, endpoint are we using and how we authenticating to that. But then on the right-hand side, there's two areas to look at, the sync frequency and the schema settings. The sync frequency shows how we can go from anything from, as I say, infrequent, as 24 hours. So we can define one time on a daily period where we're going to go off and look at that incremental sync, or as frequent as 1 minute. So this is our near real-time use case. Of course, it depends upon technology and source that you're going to address. In the cases of maybe SAP or Oracle, you might never actually be able to extract the data out of Oracle or SAP in that quick time to be able to support a minute, but there are use cases there where we can go from a minute to a 24-hour period.
And of course, this is from the UI, from the API. With the REST API for Fivetran, you can automate all that with an external scheduler, or you connect it to the rest of your pipeline.
And last piece to talk about here from a schema drift perspective, Fivetran is natively dealing with schema drift. So if there's any additional columns, additional tables, or changes to the schemas you're looking at, it will pick those up. Either you're telling it to just look at the columns within the existing schema, or in some cases you don't want to look at the changes at all, and you're going to block all those changes. But the point here is natively Fivetran is picking up those schema changes and schema drift without any concern at all. Whilst that is last bit finishing off, I'm just going to talk to the connections, just to show you the actual volume.
I would say the data is in Snowflake now.
Yeah, okay, well just one last point. Let's go to the add connections piece. We can see that we've got 737 different connectors. Choosing like popular connectors, let's say Oracle for example, you can see we have a whole wealth of different connectors for Oracle. Choosing SAP for example as well. A whole wealth of different SAP connectors, either through Oracle, through SQL Server, through SAP HANA, whatever that may be. And in the case that we do have a particular source that we don't yet address, this is why, of course, we have the SDK. So we have a whole army, a whole plethora of different connectors available for you to be able to ingest your data from any different source you wish to look at. So as Aymen says, I reckon we are now done with the load. Let's just do a refresh to see if that's done, but I reckon we can move on to the Snowflake landing. So, moving into Snowflake, we're now going to take that data that's been landed into Snowflake by Fivetran and do some analytics on it, because data is useless without the purpose of analytics and making informed data-driven decisions on it. So to do that, we're going to look at Streamlit, again another technology within the Snowflake platform, and we're going to create a Streamlit application on it. I'm just going to refresh Snowflake to make sure that it picked up our schema we built, and I'm going to create a new Streamlit app and call this.
Today, of course, we're exploring Snowflake's Gen AI capabilities, but we can do with any other technology, and this is optional. This is up to you. You can use your preferred solutions.
So you can see now under available schemas, I've got my schema that's now been delivered by Fivetran. I could, of course, go and look at that in the schemas perspective in the Data Explorer, but now we're jumping straight into a Streamlit app to build a Streamlit app based upon that data. So I'm going to go and create this. What this will do is now Snowflake is going to go off and create a Streamlit application. We'll see on the right-hand side in a short while a graphical interface of a dashboard based upon Streamlit, and on the left-hand side we'll see some code which is generated. Again, at the moment this is an example app, so this is not specific to the industry or the data set we've generated. So we're going to use our GitHub repository again, come back into GitHub, and scroll down through to section 3. Again, as Aymen said, this is going to be made publicly available. If you want to look at it, come and speak to us at the Fivetran booth. You can use this within your organization to play around with this further. I'm going to go back into Snowflake and simply just replace what I already have in Streamlit there with my new Streamlit code. Press run. And in a short while, we've now seen a new, completely different Streamlit application based upon now the data set that Fivetran's designed. I'm going to hide the code because that's not as relevant here now as useful. And I can see the Snowflake application. Typical dashboard, typical KPIs around conversion rates, around audience analytics, that sort of thing. So this is telling you a point-in-time analysis. But we want to actually start doing some more expert and Thank you. And more advanced analytics based upon this. So doing some predictive analytics in the case. But first of all, let's show you what Fivetran has actually done with the data. In the case of the Data Explorer, we can see a raw tabular form of all the data. There's 2 columns to look at, Fivetran synced and Fivetran deleted. Effectively, Fivetran synced is just showing the timestamp at the last point in time that that particular record, so ID 1, for example, was synced. If we update and IDs 1, 3, and 4 were updated, then of course a new timestamp will be applied to those particular records. Fivetran deleted is just there in the case to identify whether that record has been deleted in the source. We never physically delete the record in the target, we just mark it as true or false as a Boolean value to say it's been deleted or not. The last point is now looking at AI insights. We've got 4 different areas. I'm going to choose, for example, strategic recommendations, and you'll see the business challenge updates according to that. And now from this, I'm going to choose a particular Cortex model or agent I'm going to run some analysis with. So I'm going to choose OpenAI GPT and start the agent. Scrolling down now, we'll see how the agent is running and progressing. And effectively, this is going to make some recommendations, some strategic recommendations on how we can improve our business based upon the data that's now residing in Snowflake. So in a very quick time, we've now got recommendations, if I scroll through, that the business can take forward around things like digital marketing, around context competitive advantage. I think there's about 5 different areas, around content strategy, advanced content technology. So these are very specific to the industry based upon the data set that's been delivered. Okay? So what have we seen so far? We've basically taken, in less than 20 minutes, we've taken a completely custom data set that Fivetran's not yet accustomed to with a connector. We've built a connector using Claude AI and Claude Workbench with a user and system prompt. We built that connector.py file. We've compiled that and debugged that with the Fivetran Connector SDK to build the connector. And then through Fivetran and the platform, because the platform has taken care of the rest, we've delivered that data into Snowflake, on top of which we've been able to use Streamlit applications and Cortex to make some real AI-driven, data-driven decisions. Okay? And with that, I'm going to hand back to Aymen.
So basically, I mean, we're going to have a Q&A session. I mean, we have time here now, but let me put some lovely slide there instead of all that code. So exactly, as mentioned, Mark, we have a booth at the end of this hall where we run this lab, hands-on lab.
K38 or L30.
To the laptops is number L30. It's by the door, by the wide door entry. If you come in, you will do the same thing and you get this t-shirt. You see? It's lovely, right? So, otherwise, thanks a lot for being here. We'll still be here. We're going to be here for another at least 5-7 minutes. So if you have any quick questions, please go ahead. There's a mic, I think, around.
If there's particular questions, put your hands up and we can try to help.
Yeah, there's a mic in the back there, so just raise your hand and you can get the mic and ask a question.
Oh yeah, we need to switch to...
Yeah, once they get the mic.
Oh.
That's mean you've done a great job. Huh?
We've
There's
obviously
no
done such a good job.
Everything
There's
is
no
so
questions.
nice, so slit, so good.
All right, so that leaves
I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's lunchtime, guys. Go, go, go.
Thank you for your time and
okay?
enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.